we ended up winning the tournament. We had 20 pounds for 2 days. We had 11 pounds the first day and 9 pounds the second day. It was enough for the win for the American Bass Team Championship. We won a Ranger aluminum boat with a 115 Mercury and a Lowrance HDS 7 Gen 3, which is for sale right now. If anybody's in the market for a brand new boat, I think we're willing to make a pretty good deal right now. It retails for, I think, 23, 24 with the graph. So
you can willing to make 5, 10, 12.
So anyway, if anybody's in the market, we have a boat for sale. Super proud of it. Johnny and I fished it last year. We missed the win by 0.3 of a pound. Derek Yamamoto beat us out. And that's the hard part. But Derek Yamamoto, he told us he was coming for us on Facebook, and it kind of made us mad, you know. It's like, oh, really, Derek, bring it. And then he beat us. So that really stung. And then 3 years ago, with Mike Brillhart, I fished with Mike Brillhart, and we missed it by 0.3 of a pound. So I was on a mission to win this tournament. It meant a lot to me, and to fish with Johnny. He's got a really neat thing going on, you know, with and I'll tell you what, one of the things that really helps him is fishing with confidence. You know, when you don't think there's any fish out there and you don't think you're using the right color, you're at a disadvantage already. And, you know, we went 2 or 3 hours without a bite the second day, you know, and there was some big size, and it's like, man, you can see this tournament just slipping away from you. And he just stuck to what he was doing and said, I know the fish are here. I know the fish are here. We slowed down and caught them. Anyway, with that being said, I'm going to introduce Johnny Johnson. He's got his U.S. Open trophy here to show up. Yeah, awesome. He won over $100,000, fully rigged 20-foot nitro boat with a 225 Mercury outboard, and beat 187 boats in one of the toughest tournaments I think there is to fish. And
on that little thing right there, can you believe it?
And all I got to say is, I've had 3 people come up to me and say, aren't you the guy that fishes with Johnny Johnson? So, thanks for that. Johnny's on top of the world. He deserves it. An amazing win. So thank you guys very much.
He could be number 3
Sure thing, sure. You definitely, without a doubt, we had a good time at the AVA. I got to tell you something. That was good. But at the AVA, just to credit Matt on this deal, because it took both of us to win this tournament, no doubt. Because, you know, that last day of practice, I've never actually seen you do that. He actually tied his rod up just like he said. He put it on the deck, snapped it in, went and sat in the passenger seat while I'm sitting in the back. He goes, I'm done. He says, my fish are here. He says, I'm sick of this. He says, you won the Open. What are you doing sitting back there? You're going to fish your stuff. It's all up to you. And I'm like, well, that's just great. But short part of the whole long story is at the end of the day, we did get our limit. We did get our limit in some of those areas that I won the U.S. Open in. But at the end of the day, we had one little tiny, I'm talking bass that was barely touching the 13-inch mark. And Matt could get it to go, and I'm looking at it, and I'm about half blind. I got contacts in anyway, and I'm like, is it really touching the line? You know, we need a magnifying glass to see if that thing was going to touch the line. And he said it was touching the line. I'm like, okay. And it made us nervous because we knew that we left the door open for somebody to come in because we had 11 pounds the first day. And then Matt was kind of like, well, we'll hammer down the spank a little bit more. And then I'm like, Matt, I said we got, I don't know, an hour and a half. I was trying to talk him into going back to his areas that he was doing good in because we had pretty much tapped my stuff out and for 2 days. And I'm like, we got back to your spot. And he's like, you know, he says, you know, if they're biting, we can have a limit of 2-pounders easy, you know. And I'm like, well, let's go. We're sitting here talking. We sat and contemplated on it for like 15 minutes. And I'm like, dude, it's, you know, we're what, 45 minutes from the launch pad, and you're hoping that everything's going to work on your boat. And we'll see 21 nitro boats with that Mercury package is awesome. And it got me back and forth through the Open. It got us back and forth for this tournament. But you get a little nervous when you know you have a shot to win and you're that far away and you're limited on time. You have to be back in at 3 and it's like 1 o'clock and we're like, oh man. So Matt was like, well, as long as it stays glass out there, it's about a 35, 40-minute trip, 45-minute trip at best. He says we can fish till 2 and then get out of here. And so we went flying up to his area. To his credit, I think on his first drop, he says, I just got bit. I'm like, really? He sets the hook, and it's 1 over 13, so we were able to get rid of the little squeaker. And I'm like, oh, thank goodness. And I said, man, this water's a little discolored up in this area, and I've been throwing my drop shot the whole time. And I've learned a lot about the drop shot. It's, you know, people make fun of the drop shot rig, a lot of folks, and I'll tell you what, I put a lot of money into it this year, and it's one of my go-to techniques when the fishing's really tough. A lot of people say when you go to this rig, you've given up, and I think Matt can speak for it, and Gary, you too. I've seen catch 6-pounders out of trees with this rig. But this rig is awesome. You can win tournaments on it. It's definitely 90% of my fish were caught on this at the U.S. Open, and probably 90% or 95% of our fish were caught on it at the ABA Championship, and 100% of them were caught at the Wild West tournament that I won in January in the inaugural Wild West Bass tournament, the Pro-Am. But it's an awesome rig. But I looked at Matt and I'm like, you know, it's a little bit dingy up here, and I really didn't have anything set up for his water because I didn't think we were going to have to go there. And I'm like, man, I really don't have time to tie a whole lot of stuff on. So I'm digging through all my stuff, and I find this, what was it? The MM3. Something a little darker in that water with a tail on it. And I threw it out there. Right after he caught his fish and said I got bit, slung it in, and we got that thing out, I threw right out on a weed line edge there, and boom, popped another pound, a quarter fish or something like that. So then, at that point, we knew we were good. And we managed to, in his spot to catch another limit. Even though we didn't use it all, we still would have had another limit out of his area. So your area finally turned on, which was good. And, you know, we worked good together. I had a lot of fun with Matt. We definitely put our heads together and work hard together to try to win these tournaments. You know, back to the U.S. Open, I tell you, we were practicing there for about a week, and I had to hear Matt, I had to hear Andrew both tell me how they're catching nice fish, and I'm like, I'm just not swinging this. I can't even get a limit each day. I think the first day of practice I was there, I had no fish, but I wasn't throwing the drop shot. I was trying reaction and doing some different things that I thought would work. You know, we all want to try top water, and sometimes you find yourself force-feeding the fish too much with that. But Lake Mead's one of those lakes to where if you're getting bit on top water every 40 minutes or 45 minutes, they're usually quality fish, and that's why a lot of guys will go, hey, I want to throw that top water all day, hope for 5 bites, because you're in an 8-hour tournament, and hope you get a good load. So, in saying that, I did that for the first 3 days of practice. I managed 0 fish the first day, 2 fish the second, maybe 3 on the third. I was spun out. And Matt asked me, we were all talking in the room. It's like, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to pick up my drop shot rod and I ain't putting it down. And I said, because I can't get bitten on nothing else. And I didn't even pick it up during the practice. But I knew I had some areas over the years that I had some confidence in. And their mainstay areas that are on kind of like the main channel, body of water, instead of going back into a bunch of long pockets where the water's constantly moving and it's got a little grass and some deep water to it, and that's pretty much what I did. And stayed in pretty much the clear water, tried to stay out of the dingy one with the drop shot. But there was one ticket. I decided what I'm going to do is the wind's blowing. I think the first 2 days the wind was blowing like crazy. And I said, man, this is a good time for reaction, okay? And what I mean by reaction baits is you can throw a top water bait, a jerk bait, a crank bait, a spinner bait, something that's moving constantly. My choice was the spinner bait. And I thought, oh, if the wind's going to blow 200 miles an hour, I'm going to find a spot, a bait I can fish, and something I got confidence in, and just try the spinner bait. I'll give it 1 hour each day during the open. And that was after the first day, because I did straight drop shot and came in with a 7-pound limit. And I'm thinking, man, I know I can get my limit now. I'm confident with the drop shot. What I'll try to do is try to catch a couple of bigger fish,
Because at the US Open, you know, there's always these 20-pound bags being caught there in practice. But it seems like every time we start this tournament, if you have a 7-pound limit a day, you're cashing a check. And at this point, I did so terribly during practice, I'm like, I just want to go cash a check. If I can get it done, you know, it's a long trip. So on the second day, I said, well, I'm gonna pick up that spinnerbait and throw it for about an hour. I'm gonna give myself an hour, early morning, low light, wind blowing like crazy. So I went and found the most wind blowing bank I could find, main base, and I throw on that spinnerbait, and I think I threw it the second cast and caught a 2.5 pounder. On like the fourth cast, after I put that in the line well, and boom, I catch another 2.5 pounder. And then my partner, for the second day, threw out there, had a backlash. We're in the wind. He's busy trying to spin that backlash out on his point. And I said, dude, I'm not going to be able to go back and get that spinnerbait because it looked like I could get the bank to me. And it was just like maybe 3 or 4 feet off the shoreline. And all of a sudden, he starts going in, and all of a sudden, he pops it off the rocket, and all of a sudden, boom! 3-pound smallmouth. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. I said, be careful with that fish. It's a foot-pound test line use. He's throwing a spinnerbait, throwing a spinnerbait with 8-pound test line. You talk about somebody's heart going through their throat right there. I was like, you have got to be kidding me, man. He's throwing 8-pound test line with a spinnerbait in his wind. And lake meat fish are athletes. And we've talked about this. Matt was telling me, you know, it's the truth. They're constantly moving, they're on the run, they're to eat, and competing with the striper. When you catch a fish, that's just the start of it. When you catch the fish, trying to get them to the boat, that's the other part that's really tough. Because, man, they're coming out of the water no matter what you do. You can throw your rod tip in, those smallmouths are coming out of the water. And you gotta hope they don't throw your hook. So, he catches that fish, it's coming in, and I just said, man, please tell me your drag set. And I finally hear it zing a little bit, and I'm like, oh, he says, dude, do you think I do this once in a while? Wait. And I'm like, you're throwing 8-pound test line, man. On a blade, I'm not even sure you even set the hook, got the hook in the fish. Because you got so much stretch in the line, and it's like, oh my goodness. He had the hook in the fish, and it was buried. I think the fish actually bit it when it was just laying there off the backlash. But bottom line is we got the fish to the boat, and I was like happy for that because it's a combined weight format. Patted him on the back, and I said, do me a favor. I said, you got another rod with 14 or at least 14-pound test line on you? Put that something up. I want to help you. He says, no, I really don't. So I'm reaching in my rod locker trying to find stuff. I finally found him a rod. Well, here you go. Use that one. And I'm like, please don't break it. It's my Taipan rods. You know, these things are awesome. I got to tell you, they're straight graphite rods. They don't have any fiberglass in them. So they're real, you know, you can't jam them into the rod locker, but they're real sensitive. I love these rods. And I really have to say that Simon from Taipan, when he set me up with these rods, I really do think they offered a lot for my drop shot. I really feel really good. They're really nice and light. But anyways, we went back to drop shotting after about an hour because we had 3 fish. And I'm like, all we have to do is catch 2 drop shot fish. Went to one of my spots. And you got to remember, I think we were burning probably $60 to $80 a day in gas and burning a gallon of oil every day, trying to get to these fish. So, you know, we ended up catching our weight back, and I had 965. And I thought that's a respectable weight. You doggone right, it was a respectable weight. It was the heavy weight of the tournament. There was 186 boats there. 186 boats, and that was the heavy weight for the day. Justin had one for the first day, and I thought, oh, this guy's going to whack. Smallmouth are here today, gone tomorrow. And it is, I hate to say it, but man, we can have the best spots in the world, but it's almost like you can't get hooked on spot fishing at Lake Mead. You just got to constantly keep moving them. Fish are constantly moving. If you go back to that same spot you caught them in yesterday, odds are it's going to be, you may not even get bit. And then you go back the next day and they're loaded on. I don't understand it. All I know is that Aaron Martins told me a long time ago, probably about 5 years ago, after winning 3 of these things, he said, John, you've got to keep moving. You can't sit in one place. He said, you're dying on the vine in a lake like this doing that. And I'm like, all right. I listened to him. I've been cashing checks for 5 years. So then I just won the US Open. And the AZ championship here. So Aaron Martins gave me, a lot of great advice right there, and it's helped me a ton. But on the third day I went out, and I thought, well, I'll try to copy that pattern. And I went back to that spot, and I only caught one fish, but it was a 3-pounder, and I'm like, on a spinnerbait. And the water just turned dead calm. We had 2 days of heavy wind. I should have been throwing that spinnerbait the first day. What do you do when the wind's blowing? Roll a blade or throw a crankbait or something. Reaction's great. And I was drop shotting the first day. That killed me right there. Thank God I could come back from that. But the thing is I ended up catching one fish on the spinnerbait. As the light level came up, it was dead because the water just went calm slick. And when it does that, the first thing I did, I think I fished that thing for a half hour, 5 minutes, and I said, you know what? No more bites, we're going to drop shot. I got to get my limit today. And I had my partner, believe it or not, the third day was Tom Cruise. Would you believe that? Wrong Tom Cruise. Great guy, but when I first drew him, I wasn't sure if I should do the old risky business slide across the net anymore. Singing Bob Seger, but anyways, I had a great time with it. He kept my head in the game a lot, and he had a tough time catching fish. I've never seen anybody catch as many striper on a drop shot. They usually hit the weight on the way down. You'll throw out there, the striper will go hit the weight like it's like a shad or something. But I've never seen so many striper like he caught strictly on the worm. And he was throwing an Aaron's Magic worm, and I'm like, man, every time he hook into a fish, I was getting excited. And it was a striper, and I'm like, wow, that's incredible. Usually they don't do that. They just hit the weight. But learned something new there too. But we ended up fishing, and you could tell I moved up to 4th place on the second day from 41st to 4th, and you could tell that everything was kind of getting really crammed in the area that I was in. I had a boat pull up alongside me on that side, a boat pull up alongside me on the other side, and I couldn't really go either way. And they were within their legal boundaries. I'm sure there's places they were fishing, because I've seen a lot of these boats in the same areas, and they're just jumping from spot to spot. So I looked back, and I'm like, well, there's nobody over there. And I saw a point that looked pretty good with the same kind of rock that we were fishing. And I'm like, well, let's go over there. It was perfect because it was a nice, beautiful point. 2 points that came down, and it had a little weed patch in the middle of it, about 20 foot of water. And I could see it from the distance, the little black patch. And I'm like, So I threw directly, instead of throwing on the sides, right in the middle of the little cut. And that cut was probably 25 or 30 feet long or something. And that thing fell to the bottom, and I felt a doink. And I set the hook, and it was 3-pounder. And I got it to the boat. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I got 2 3-pounders in the boat. And, that polished off my limit. I was so excited. I put everything down. I think, okay, I got about 9.5, 10 pounds real easy right now, And so Tom Cruise, my partner, said, maybe you should start heading back, and start working your way back just in case something happens. So far away. And we were the last line in on the last day. All of a sudden, things start looking kind of slow, and you don't see nearly as many boats flying across the water, and you're like, man, if something does go wrong, if I can't start my boat, nobody's going to go by, because, it's like you're out in the ocean, So we started working our way back, and I said, I got to go try that same spot that I was catching the spinnerbait fish in, just to check it. And I went in, and I had one pocket I wanted to fish that had another little weed bed, because I just caught that one out of it. And there was a little ripple on the water, and I look over, and I grab a little swim bait, and I throw it right up in there, right past the weed patch, and boom, I catch a 1.25 pound fish. Now, I was able to cope with that because I had a little 13-inch fish I had to get rid of. And I was shaking so hard at that point, thinking, man, U.S. Open, been fishing since '94. Man, I got a shot to win. That's all that kept running through my mind. I finally got a shot, Took me a half hour to tie the rod back up, and I throw that same bait right back out there, right over the same spot, and a big old 3-pounder torpedoes that. 2.5, 3-pounder real easy. And that's when my scale said, hey man, we got like 11 pounds. We better head in. So we started heading in, and I'm like, there's a flat over there. My buddy had fishes all the time. I don't see him know, it's not like I'm stealing his water or nothing, or mooching the water, but I'm like, I need to pull in there before we go in, because I knew once I went through the narrows, you know, to come out towards the other basin where Calvin was at, that my fishing day was over, because I couldn't get bit in those areas at all. And I still have 45 minutes or an hour left to fish. And I put the trolling motor down, I'm all excited to cast in there, and I hear this boat coming. And I look over, and here comes this big orange boat flying like this. Oh, you gotta be kidding me, man. I said, that's my buddy Matt Sure. I said, man, I'm in a spot. And so Matt starts fishing away. He didn't even see me. You didn't see me, did you?
It was focused.
Yeah, he was focused. So he turns around and he sees me and he comes flying up to me, and I'm like, dude, you go ahead and take this. He asked me what I had. I said, I got about 11 pounds. He says, dude, I'm following you in. You need to get in right now. And I'm like, really? He says, you need to get in. You know, just I play it safe and get in. And I'm like, okay. So I kind of sat down he's telling me to get in. He's going to follow me and everything. So I sat down in the seat, put my stuff on, and I started my motor, and I started looking back, and there's Matt still fishing. I went in my spot! Anyways, it was great. We had a good time. Get in, and ended up winning the tournament. It was fun. I had one of the most exciting years of my life this year. And I'll tell you what, I'm very humble and happy with what's going on. I can tell you this much, you know, people ask me all the time about fall fishing. And we're going into fall, and I'd like to help people out the best I can. I'm out trying to do shows myself, and Matt's kind of making fun of me about making the Saguaro report today. Well, here's my Saguaro report today. I set my alarm. You got to realize, we've been out a month. I've been setting my alarm. We get up at 3:30 in the morning to get these legs. I'm exhausted. I haven't even been home yet. I'm here. I haven't been home yet. My wife decided to come down, and Darren, my cameraman, decided to come down and so we could get some shows done before I went back home this weekend. Well, basically to get some laundry done so I could come back on Friday so I can fish the Wild West Team tournament. But I'll be here. But so anyways, went out to Saguaro. My alarm didn't go off this morning. I was so upset. I look outside. It's 6:30 in the morning, and I'm like, well, there goes the top water line. I'm like, the morning bite's done. And I told Darren, I says, well, we thought about going to Bartlett, but you told me the fishing wasn't so good at Bartlett. And so I'm like, well, where can we go fishing? It'd be fun, maybe catch. I want to hook some fish, man. We've been at Lake Mead for a month. I want to just hook some fish, have fun, you know? And so anyways, I decided to go to Saguaro Lake today. And fall fishing usually it's wide open, like Matt says. It's fun. They're chasing the shad. It's a lot of fun. The fish are moving. You'll see a bull here. You'll see a bull there. They'll try to corral them in the coves, and you know it's a lot of fun. I was so excited about getting there, and then I get there, and we started fishing for a little bit. Now I fished a surf bait a little bit today. I was trying a bass assassin, and I got a few swipes on it, but it wasn't really the ticket. And so I decided, well, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago we did that punching show. And I thought, man, I wonder if they punch it back, you know? And so we started going to the coves, and some of the weeds would look green and okay, and then it just wasn't the same. It's still not the same as it was when Matt and I were there doing that punching show. But I did manage to catch a 3-pounder punching in one of the weed patches at Saguaro Lake today. And what we catch the fish on? Oh yeah, the spoon. One of my favorite spoons for that lake is, we caught a 3-pounder on a spoon today, and it just so happened I was looking up on the shore, just kind of looking around, and I saw this big ball of shad just go right by me, and I'm like, well that's crazy, and I looked at my trolling motor, or looked at my graph, and my graph said, hey, you're in 40 foot of water, and we're from here to you, I'm back, just trying to look at my favorite spoons for that lake is a Castmaster. It's a 3/4 ounce, but it gets down there quick and it's gold because the water's kind of off color right now. So I dropped that Castmaster down, hit the bottom, popped it right through that school of shad, popped it once, and I felt something, and I went, oh, I got bit. I dropped it again, I felt it again, I'm like, oh God, I missed it. And finally caught it the third time, and it was a 3-pounder. There was a bunch of fish down there, but by the time I got done turning around and talking to the camera, and getting all excited about catching a 3-pounder, the school was gone, and it was over. If we would have had more guys, or I would have just dropped it off right there, I think I could have caught more fish, but the spoon bite should be kicking in pretty nice. You know, and like I said, top waters, my favorite top waters are, of course, the Zero Spooks and Ricos this time of year. And they got the new bumper blocker out, and I'll tell you, there's some guys using it. They were using it at meat and catching some fish on it, but I have yet to have an incredible day on that fly lure yet. So I can't really speak for that. But I can tell you that, you know, I like to move my Ricos fast. I see a lot of guys that out there throwing them and they're just kind of chugging them and they act like it's a chug bait. You can do that, but I like to throw it out there and just keep it coming, change the cadence a little bit. And a lot of times, one of the things that Rico is designed for is to spit. And when it spits, when you're popping it really fast and it's spitting, it's actually spitting little water droplets out in front of it. And it looks like a bunch of shad trying to run from whatever's chasing. So usually the Rico's with the fast hit, you know. So that's one of the things that makes that Rico so incredible. But I see so many people working it slow, and it works that way, like a top bar. But if you're chugging it really fast and making it spit, it catches a lot of fish. But that's the Sonoran Lake report. Tomorrow I'll probably, I don't know where we're going, probably Canyon or something. We'll get a show done. All the new shows have started. I kind of got my back against the wall. Everybody's like, well, man, you need to do your shows in season. I really do them in season. I have to do 13 shows in the beginning of the year, in the spring and early summer, and then those will repeat. Now our new shows are starting, and all those shows were done right around just before we went to the U.S. Open. And now the shows that you're going to see, I think this week, Matt, you're on. So Matt will be on with us at Apache. I think we did a little night fishing in this one. So if you like night fishing, if you've ever had a chance to do that, you can see us do a little night fishing. But so we're going to be right there running on these shows. The next week after Matt, the show that you see will be the show that I will be filming tomorrow somewhere. So that's how fast we're getting this done. So I got my back against the wall, having a lot of fun, and I've sure enjoyed fishing, but I'm here to answer any questions. And like I said, I brought the drop shot rod because I know a lot of people are asking me what drop shot rod I'm using. And, you know, I don't know a lot of you follow me on Facebook, but there's some people there that ask a lot about the rain situation. You know, I can tell you this. Two things I don't do is try to stay closed-minded, number one, and number two, I guess it's the old look a gift horse in the mouth thing. I like to learn. Even as long as I've had my show on 20 years, I learn from these cats all the time. I learn from you guys. I learn from your mind has got to be a sponge in this game. You're not going to learn anything, and you're not going to get better. And I contribute myself getting better to have this one of the best successful years I've ever had in fishing. Even though I felt I was always a decent little fisherman and could hang, it's a constant work and practice, and I've been on the water a lot. But I'm telling you right now, the reason I was one of the ones that you could not get the change from fluorocarbon to braid for my drop shots. And the reason why I did that was number one, because you have elite series anglers like Josh Bertrand and Ben Holiday and guys like that talking about sensitivity, no more line twists, tie that fluorocarbon leader on. But and so that's what I did. And I used the Alberto, and Josh was here showing it one time. If anybody needs help with that, I can show you. You can find it on YouTube. But that Alberto knot is one of the strongest little knots and the nicest knot. I don't reel my knots into my reel. I always make sure that when I tie that leader knot, that it's going to be right about, but it's going to be right between these two guys, okay? With a drop shot, you can let it come back to here, but Matt will reel it up in the reel sometimes, but I just don't like doing it. Josh and Brendan told me it's not a good thing to do that because it wears on the knot a little bit from the line going in and out on it. But I tie that fluorocarbon leader on there, and it is a pain in the neck. It's a 6-pound fluorocarbon leader. You can see my drop shot. That's about the length I like it when I start. Of course, it gets shorter. You what's so funny is so many people are like, well, what's your line size on your leader between your weight and your hook? And I said, whatever it is, when I, you know, it depends on whether I broke off the weight or not. I'm not gonna sit there and retie that. If I just break off the weight real quick, I'll just put another weight on it, it'll be a shorter leader. But I think it's more having work bait versus how long the leader is a lot of times. The longer leader is what I like to start with, without a doubt. If I can get away with doing that all day, I'm a happy camper. But that's what I did for the US Open right there. There was times that we used it shorter, you know, only because we kept busting off and we caught fish on it. And we talked about it. Matt and I talked about it. We're like, maybe that shorter leader will work, but I've been pretty successful with that leader just like that. But I tie a 6 pound, I'm using a 15-pound braid line, okay, with a 6-pound fluorocarbon leader. And that's what I'm doing with my drop shot. I have some guys that use 8. The guys that like to use 8, 10, 12, you know, that's fine if you're fishing the weeds or the stumps or something like that. But after doing so many demos and watching how your worm works in the water the way it does, I really like to have a lighter line because the worm acts more natural. I think it's really important that way. One other thing is that this is something I learned at the US Open, and I'm going to start using it more often. I don't know if it's coincidence, it could be, I don't know. When the water is calm and still, it seemed like the straight tail worms were working better. When the water has a breeze blowing on it, I did better on the curly tails. And that is the way I threw it in the US Open, that's what I decided on. I love throwing this worm, I've thrown it for years, thanks to Matt and Mike and stuff. They got me hooked on that oxblood red flake. It's an awesome worm, but it just was not working for me at the Open. And I had one of my partners on the first day hook a bass on there with magic, and it didn't take me. But that's the thing, is you can't be afraid to change. You just can't be afraid to change. These fish tell you something, you need to stick to it, don't be stubborn. Because being stubborn will cost you. So I changed. You know, I've got all kinds of packs of Air Magic in my deal, and I went to the straight tail worm just like him. And so, and then the other thing is I use the rebar hook. And if you notice, it's more that Texas rig, what they call a Texas rig. It's actually weedless. That's the way I throw that drop shot. That way you can get it up in the trees, the weeds, or whatever, working through the little brush hole. You know, some guys nose hook their stuff, but I had 3 guys in the US Open, and all 3 guys were nose hooking, and all 3 guys were losing fish. I don't normally lose fish on a drop shot unless I just flat break the leader or break it off. So, anyways, that's the scoop. That's what I like to use. So it's basically the same setup. I learned it from Matt, to be honest with you. Matt's an awesome drop shot, probably one of the best out here in the West. And you know, I just kind of moved from that. You know, because I used to use a different kind of hook. Same style, but mine had the offset shape. And so the rebar hooks are great. They're hard to find around here. I heard. I don't know if you can get them here at Bass Pro, but they're good hooks, and they're made by Lowell, so if you go to Lowell, you can get them. Anyways, anybody have any questions about? You know what? I use J-Braid, but I just started using that Smackdown. What's that made by? Seaguar? Yeah, the Smack. And the reason why is this Clifford Perch. You know, it's another great fisherman, right? We all learn from each other. We were just sitting around going, hey, we're using J-Braid. What are you using? He says, oh, I'm using the Smackdown. And it's really tough line. I use the Smackdown through the Open. And it's really stout, you know, good line. I was having some problems with some wind runs, and so was Andrew. But I think a lot of us had to throw it because we had 40-mile-an-hour winds. Sometimes you just have that issue. You know, it is what it is. I can't really blame the braid. It's hard work braid with winds. I'm going to tell you that right now. But you'll throw out there, and that wind will just take your pig, and it's just really, but it's more sensitive. There was so many times I can tell you this. I'd throw out there and it'd be falling, and I'd have that bow in my line, and I'd still feel it. You could still feel that there was going to be a fish on there, and it was crazy. I love having the braid. It's more sensitive than throwing the fluorocarbon. When I used to get bites on that fluorocarbon, you'd be going, is that a fish? You know, it feels really spongy. Is that a fish? It feels spongy. Now with these things, as it's dropping, you can really feel every little thing. When I won that tournament in January, on the drop shot with that braid. I was using J braid there. In that 40 to 60 foot of water zone that I was fishing, with that kind of line, it feels like you're in 2 foot of water. You can feel everything down there, especially with that new rod. And I'll tell you that I'm really shocked on the fishing rod because I fished, I was fishing carbonites, which are great rods. Bass Pro is good rods. They're a good introductory rod, without a doubt. But when Simon came to me and showed me this, at first I thought, man, you guys are gonna love this because it's on a show. You'll love this. I got this rod in just like this, and I went, man, they bit my guide in packaging, and I bent it back down, and I fished stuff like that with Mike Brothers, and we were throwing some little spinners out there on Apache Lake, and I get a call from Simon. He says, dude, my wife and I are laughing like crazy. I said, why? Did you see your rod? And I'm like, what about it? Oh, you mean the bent guide from the packaging? He says, dude, I put it on that way for a reason. You get a farther cast like that. I'm like, oh. Well, bend it back then. Anyways, it is what it is. But, he has the spiral wrap on the bait casting, on the casting rod, the spiral wrap. And believe it or not, it's pretty awesome because what ends up happening is as you pull the line down on the rod itself, as you pull the line down, not one part of that line is touching. Like if you grab a regular rod that you have now, and you take and pull your line down like such, your rod's actually twisting. It's twisting to be able to pull down with the line, and your line's hitting your rod, believe it or not. And that's a lot of wear and tear on your rod. It's a lot of wear and tear on the line, because your line's pumping. And so the way he's got his guide set up on those rods, when you pull down like this, the line is strictly just like this, all the way down, and your rod's not twisting. It comes straight down with it, so the tip of your rod will not twist. That's how a lot of rods end up breaking after a while and get wore out. So pretty good deal. He said they started using that on the ocean. They went to it with bass. So it's worked out pretty good. But, well, that was a long one.
Is that the grip that it came with, or is that a wind grip?
No, it comes with the grips. And you're more welcome to come up and check these out after we're done. But yeah, without a doubt, it comes with the grip. And I'll tell you what, I thought when I first saw it, I was like, I wonder if that kills the sensitivity. No, it don't. But the one thing it does do is, especially when you're doing a lot of fishing, it's nice to have I like a little bit bigger grip. I don't like a real small, fishing pole. I like the bigger grip, especially in the wintertime, and it's nice. It really is. Really, really nice grip. Anybody else? Yeah.
Is there any, well, first of all, my buddy here introduced me to your show, and I've been loving it ever since.
Thank you.
It's entertaining and informative.
That's supposed to be maybe.
That's what I'm talking about, son.
That's what I'm talking about, son.
I love it. I was going to ask, is there any way you're willing to fire with that rod you got there?
Rule the what?
Any way you're willing to fire?
It's the U.S. Open winner. It's the Wild West winner.
It's not worth much.
They're about $1,000. Hey, the boys ever buy back there? No, I'm kidding. You can buy them. I think they're about $230 is what they run.
$229?
$230, $240, yeah. You know what? I gotta have it for the show tomorrow. I'd love to partner. If these lakes keep doing what they're doing, I'm gonna have to have it.
Right.
But I can get you in touch with the person that can get you one right away.
I looked at him actually since watching your show. I mean, I talked to him about it.
I'm totally convinced on that rod. I'll tell you, even Paul. Paul, you got to fish with Simon, did you not?
Yeah.
And didn't you throw his rods?
Yeah, we switched rods for a little while, and I was impressed with his rods. I've actually ordered one.
See, there you go, Paul Hodges.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, they're nice. They're nice rods.
So is that a medium then that's used for the drop shot?
This is a medium light.
Medium light.
Yeah, medium light, and you can see the bend in it. When it's pulled, it's really nice. You set your drag up, but it's got a good tip on it, to fish good, it's really sensitive, you gotta have one. No joke, it's a good rod. I use Shimano reels, unless I'm throwing the bait casters, then I use the Johnny Moore Signature Series reels. They're awesome reels, I love them. I've never had a problem with them, so I just keep going, I love them. But, yeah, that's it, but you're more than welcome to come look at it. Anything else? Yeah.
On the custom hooks, what brand do you recommend or what size?
It's a rebar. It's made by, it's a number one. What I'm throwing with the 4-inch is just a number one rebar hook, and it's made by the RoboWorm company. You know, they get those, you can buy them from them.
Okay.
But you're more welcome to come up and look at this when you get a chance and you can see the hook itself. But it's a number one, not a one-on. Just a number one. So yeah, it's yeah, a lot of guys make a mistake, and when I tell them number ones, they go out and buy one-on, which is the 1/0. So just get the number ones. You'll be fine. Perfect setup. Thank you, Matt. Again.
Why 15-pound braid?
Well, I was throwing 10. 10 is good too, but it's really thin and really, you know, I won't go over 15, but I want to go 15 for a little bit more strength. And it's a little thicker, you know, it feels like something's there, you know. I don't suggest going any more than 15. You know, I actually tried to spool up 20 on one of my other drop shot rods, and because I carried the two same, it was almost too much. You 10, I was going with the 10 on the J braid. 10's fine, but it's really thin, and you know, 10 to 15 will work. As long as you throw in something, you know, a little bit heavier, you know, you're good to go.
So they have I can't think of the brand name, it's made by Berkeley, it's like braid
Nano.
So I know they sell them, I've seen videos, I think even with Josh, was using like the bright green to see it better, and they have the white, and they have like.
I use white. I use the white for my Cincos.
Yeah. Do you think the color, I mean, the effects, because like I've been trying the green right now.
It's metal. Here's the deal. I think a lot of it's metal. And what I mean by that is I use the white all the time on these clear lakes or on that Cinco, and I've never had a problem catching fish on it. I use it because it's my indicator. It's like a bobber in the water. When you're throwing weightless stuff, especially, and your line's just sitting there on top of the water, because when I throw my Cincos out there, my wacky Cincos or my weightless Cincos, I like my line to lay on top of the water and let the lure fall naturally. Because if you keep your line tight so you can feel the bite, the lure is just going to come straight below the boat. So you want to throw it out there and let it fall. The reason why I like the nanofill in the white is because when I throw it out there, it just kind of sits right on top of the water. It's got neutral buoyancy, so it'll follow the lure down. But you can watch it. It's like a strike indicator, you know, like fly fishing or something. And when the fish hits it, you see the quick jump, you know. Or you watch your line kind of moving out like this, and all of a sudden you see it go, you know, moving out real fast. You're like, yep, there's a fish. And it gives you time to get set and butt, you know. But a lot of it's mental. I went to the U.S. Open. I'm not going to throw white on my drop shot. I don't know. It's a mental thing for me. I'll throw it with my Cinco, but I won't throw it with the drop shot. But hey, confidence is your best thing in the tackle box, man. So, but I caught a Cinco fish. Actually, we practiced at the Open with the white nanofill, and you know. The guy that was behind me the first day in the Open caught a couple of Cinco fish, and he was throwing the white nanofill because he'd been watching the show, and he had no problem catching fish. So, you know, I think it's just a mental thing, and I think you want to be able to see your line. You know, like I said, trying to look at fluorocarbon or something really dark in water, I want to be able to watch my line go. So that's why we use the colored lines. As long as you got the leader on there, you know, hopefully they're looking at the lure and not way up there. Anybody ever throw braid to fluoro and have the little fish come up and hit your knot? I have that happen. So you know they see it, but you know, hopefully they look at the lure first. other questions? What do you got? Uh-oh.
All right, I'm going to ask a question that all of you out there are thinking about, and you're not going to ask this question. Matt and I have sat down and we've talked about drop shotting for years. When we first met, we talked about drop shotting years and years, and 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Everybody in here drop shots, just about everybody. All right? And when the fishing's good,
Catch one.
you catch them, just throw it out, then hit the bottom, pull it, drink it a little bit. What about when it gets tough? Like, and they're not biting. How do you work that one? We're all different. He's different. I'm different. He's gonna be different. And probably all of you other guys out there have got a system. So when you catch it out, it's tough. And the fish just are not biting. You want to make a bite, or you just pull it in. You shake it a little bit. Some guys sit there and just shake their head.
That is a good question. Made me give up the secret.
Matt wanted to know. He looked it up
I'm running for office. No, figured you'd bring that up. But there was a little secret to what I was doing, and that was you actually had to shake the worm. Throw it out there, let it fall to the bottom, and when it hit the bottom, I let it kind of flutter all the way down. It's something I've always done. And as soon as it flutters all the way down, then as I'm picking it up, I'm just kind of giving it just a little shake. I keep the weight on the bottom. That's the trick. Keep the weight on the bottom, but as I'm shaking it, I'm dragging the weight just a little bit forward towards me, and I'm just kind of shaking it like this. For some reason, it's kind of like a little reaction, but even when the fishing was slow, that was the trick. But a lot of times, when you're pulling over rocks, you're shaking it anyway. But Matt likes to dead stick it, which is, there's times for that too. I mean, when you're just sitting there and you're painfully not doing it, and then you watch your time go by. Like, and you're like, there's a bite. But for me, on Lake Mead, because I call it speed shot, and Matt brought it up the day that we were out there. He's like, you're moving a little fast, And I'm like, yeah, and I'm actually going slower because I know you like to dead stick. But then I was in the open, because in the open I throw out, I let it fall. Once it fell, draw a rod tip, let the worm do its thing, let it fall, and then I'd start picking it up and I'd shake it, as I'm bringing it back to the boat, shake it, let it drop, I'd pull it up, I'd pull it out to my next target, and that's how I did it the whole time. I probably made 300 more casts than the average drop shotter, without a doubt. Because I'm moving it a lot faster, I'm not dragging it, I'm not, the guys that were in the back of my boat dragging caught maybe one fish a day, but once they started picking up on what I was doing, and they started trying to get up there and do the same thing I was doing. But, because that's what you do, you try to learn, you try to watch what's going on and do that. But I was shaking the worm. But there's times you got to dead stick.
There's times, and that's the thing about it, everywhere we go. When you start drop shotting, you get a real aggressive bite. I don't care how loud your drop shotter you are. When you throw it in there, it hits the bottom, you hold it steady, there's a tight line, and 90% of the time, if a fish sees that bait, bam, it hit it. So he fishes kind of like I do, fast.
I fish fast.
Yeah, he fishes slow, and when the bite is real bad, Matt will use a long leader, throw it out, let it hit the bottom, then he lets that worm just go like this, like
And
a
it
zebra.
works.
And it works. But it takes a long time. I don't have the patience he does as much as how they do.
Well, in the open, I have the patience, and I stayed in one spot pretty much in the Wild West, and that's what I had to do, was the Matt Schroeder grab. I couldn't get away with that Pleasant for the Wild West in January. In January is a whole different ballgame. The other thing I will admit to with the drop shot rig is, I was throwing it out there, and probably 80% of my hits were, as soon as it fell, boom, I had to hit on the ball. So I felt if I made more casts, more targets in the areas that I thought they'd be in, that I'd have a better chance of catching those fish that might be sitting there, instead of trying to grab them. At that you know, it's hard to find a school, but you always find a rock that a fish would be just sitting by. So I was just trying to do that, or a weed patch or something. I was just trying to do that. That's all I was doing. So there is times that you gotta move fast, and there's times you gotta move slow. But yeah, that was the ticket. You know, it really was. Thanks for making me spill my beans on that one. Now everybody's gonna be out there building. And I'll tell you what, if you have any questions, like I said, I've got the rod and reel up here, I've got the truck. Matt made me bring the trophy. I normally don't like doing stuff like that, but I thought, oh, I'll bring it. Oh, one other thing I wanted to show real quick. This time of year, at Apache Lake, oh, and you got some gift cards to give away from Andrew. Anyways, this is the rig. I brought this in because everybody's always asking me what hook you use. They carry it here at Bass Pro for my wacky synchro rig that I've been doing so well on at Apache Lake, and it's on at Apache Lake right now. I think everybody knows that. The fishing's really good right now, but I haven't had a chance to go there yet, but I'll get there maybe next week or something. But anyways, I'm using a 5-inch Synco. This is a watermelon. I usually like the 330 color, the one that's kind of a crawdad color. If I'm fishing in the weeds or something like that, then I'll go to the watermelons, because that's what we do at home. But if I'm fishing rock, and I'm thinking where they're crawdad, that's when I'll switch the color. And I'll go to the 330 or the 301 color in the Yamamoto Synco. I'm using an owner wacky style hook, and it's a 1-aught. You can get away with the 2-aught when they're aggressive, but when you need to downsize, I like the 1-aught. It's got a little brush guard on it. That brush guard's not going to keep you from getting hung up. All it is just if you drag it really slow or something, it'll keep you from getting hooked up. But it helps a lot. And of course, we're putting the O-ring on it. Now, people have different ways of doing that, but that's where I'm using that fill. No weight. If you're fishing steep walls, which I also like to fish with the same rig, then I'll get nail weights, and I'll put the nail weights inside the head and let it fall that way. But, one other thing I have to say about all this and on the drop shot was, a lot of people ask me, well, kind of got this guy constantly messaging me on Facebook, which is cool because he's learning. But he's like, well, why would I want to switch to Brave in Arizona? I can, for line twist, I can just put on a swivel. That's the next one. I'll just say no. I can just put on a swivel, and I'm like, well, you don't understand. If you ever go to a tank, you can go to this tank, and if you put a swivel on, I like the worm to fall naturally. That's the whole thing. Just like weightless worms or anything like that. That's what makes the drop shot so nice. Is the drop shot gets down there, and the worm fall natural down, to the bottom, and then you can pick it back up and let it fall natural. Okay. If you have a swivel up here to keep the line twist from happening, what happens? The weight falls to the bottom. As soon as you drop your rod tip to want to let this worm fall so natural and nice, you have a big old speedy swivel falling right in front of it and dragging it down. That's the reason why. So I don't use really how to drag and then other than that, that's about it. So if you got any questions or anything like that, you come over here and look at this stuff. And sorry, I can't sell the rod, but thank you guys so much. And I appreciate you watching the shows. All the new shows are out right now. We're out making them now, and hopefully we get some good fishing in for you. Teach you some more techniques. I'm trying so hard. I'll tell you what. Today, one of the reasons I didn't get out there and get it really hammered out was because I refused to pick up the drop shot. Because I didn't want to show another drop shot show for you guys. But I want to tell you right now, when the fishing gets tough in Arizona, you better learn how to drop shot, because that might be the way that you're able to just catch fish on an everyday basis when you need to, or if you want to catch fish, if you like catching fish, My dad used to love telling me how great he was going out. He used to call himself the spinnerbait specialist. I'm the spinnerbait specialist, man. I'm going to go out there and he would chunk that spinnerbait. In today's world, we really versatile. When we were kids and stuff, they in the Bassmasters, you did have a crankbait specialist, a spinnerbait specialist, a jig specialist. Danny Brower was a jig specialist. That's the way it was. But in today's world, you can't do that. You've got to be a versatile fisherman to be able to catch fish on a regular basis. So that's all we're trying to teach you to do. Right. Sir, appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Andrew from Manual Graphics gave us some $25 basketball gift cards to give away. Gary, figure out the contest or something anyway. And we've got some stuff to give away.
All right, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Have a good one and enjoy.